Hi my loves, welcome back to a new video. Today is a book video and I know I've been slacking slightly on the book content, but hear me out. I was on holiday for a month and I read a lot, so I actually have a lot to talk about. Also, that will be the title of this, so you already knew that, but let's get into it. So the first book that I read, so I'm basically going to be talking about the books that I read since the last video I made, and the reason for the title is because a big chunk of them was when I was on holiday. First one was Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cup Smith, and here's my thing. When I saw this in Waterstones, I was like, this title is gorgeous, this cover is gorgeous, the blurb sounded super interesting, and then I read it and I was like, okay. Like, I was super disappointed and I don't recommend it. In fact, I think, yeah, I sold it because I sell all my books that I don't read anymore. Like, I just secondhand give them away. And yeah, it wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, it was written well, but it was just like, none of it really made sense. It's essentially about it's like a mystery slash like thrillery kind of book, which usually I can be into. They're not the most, they're not the genre I read the most, but still I can be super into those. And I struggled to follow it. It was very strange. Like, everyone in it was supposed to be linked, but you couldn't really understand the links. And it might just be me that sometimes I'm not all here. But yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it was very well written. Like, there was no flaws. I couldn't give a flaw in that. There was none. And the concept in itself is a great concept. It was just poorly executed, and so I was kind of disappointed. So that was that. Then I read The Emo Alchemist by Aaron Levin, which actually isn't a book that's out in public, I don't think. I got sent this document, essentially a PDF of the manuscript, and read it, and actually I was super surprised. It's really good, and Aaron Levin is really cool, and it's basically just about, like, for people like myself who work for themselves predominantly, how we can use emails to like enhance our connections with other brands and companies. And it sounds boring as fuck, but it was a super short book and really well written and actually very accurate. All the tips he put in there, I used every single one and they worked, so I can't complain. Then I went on holiday and I was disappointed by yet another book. And this one sucked because I heard good things about this one. So I read the Atlas 6 and I didn't love it. Like, I gave it a 3.8. Now here's the reason again, it's the same as the first book, is there is a great plot there and it's well written, but the plot in itself is poorly executed. I found it very hard to get attached to any of the characters. It seemed a little bit cringy and cheesy, like in terms of dialogue at some points, and it also was just, it at times felt like one big like, oh, everyone's just fucking each other, like this is just a house about fucking, like. And what I mean, like, context is that the book is actually meant to be about these people who have powers and like they get like indoctrinated into like a house where like they're kind of like pit against each other. And does that not sound super interesting? I was so like, oh, this could be super cool. And actually, let me tell you, the drawings, the animation in this, the drawings, the illustration, I love. That I love. I looked up the artists, I think I follow them, but oh my god, I loved it. I loved it so much. This, however, like the actual like execution of the plot was just kind of poor. It just kind of felt like porn for teenagers. I think the reason I gave it a 3.8 though, instead of just a 3, is because the ending was quite cool. Like there was a plot twist I didn't really see coming. I did a little bit, but not entirely. And it was just like I like the idea so much. There is another book, but I don't think I'm gonna get it. I think someone would have to lend it to me because I just don't want to pay for it. Or I would just get it and sell it like I do with all the books that I don't like that I read and buy. Then I read The American Roommate Experiment, and I had the lowest expectations that you could ever ask for. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy the love deception. No, is it the Spanish love deception? That's what it's called, right? Because I did, and I still have it. And if I still have a book, that means I like it. But I just, again, like, a lot of rom-coms are kind of following a very similar pattern. It's hard to come across one that's kind of different and unique and well written at the same time, etc. And I just enjoyed it. It was fun. It wasn't harmful. It was as well written as the Spanish love deception. It was better than expected, and I think that's probably because I had very low expectations. But I did give it a 4. It's just, the thing is with rom-coms, you can go very wrong actually, but you can't go too wrong. And I just think like my expectations for a rom-com are lower than a novel, say, that's like a mystery. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was fun, it was sweet. You were rooting for the characters, so if someone can make me root for their characters or like get attached to the characters, they're a good writer, or it's just a good book. Then I read one that I was so excited to get. Now, this is not going to come to a surprise to anyone. That's fine. But it's called She Comes First by Ian Kerner, and it's essentially a book about women's bodies and how to treat them during sex, and it's mainly targeted towards men. However, obviously anyone can read it, and I read it and it was fucking brilliant, to the point where, bear in mind, it's technically a science book. Like, it's literally just saying do this, do this, do that, this is what the body is made of, like this is what you're touching when you touch it, etc. It was a science book, and I was I was hot and heated, okay? More than any other romance book I've ever read. I was like, oh my god. So read it. I fully can't find the second one, which is He Comes Next, and it's pissing me off. It's not even on Amazon. I don't know where to find it. It's been so hard to find. But I really want to read that one. But yeah. Whew. My gosh. Get it. Pick it up. Even if you're, it doesn't matter what you identify as, pick the book up. It's a 5 out of 5. And also at the time when I was reading it, I was dating like several guys. They were aware I was dating around. This was before my relationship. I told them all to read it. I was like, you need this, darling. Love you, but you need this. Every man needs it. I don't care how good you think you are at sex. Every single man needs it. Whilst I was there, within the first week, of course, I was in LA, I bought 2 other books. So I went there with about 5 books and I left with about 7, and I had read pretty much all of them by the time I had left. So yeah, it's called An Addiction. Anyways, one of the books I got was called The Roommate, and that's by Rosie Dunn, and I think I've spoken about this somewhere, but I can't remember where. Might have been like one of my monthly wrap-ups, but yeah, this was so good. For someone who was so far away, like I was half the world away from, like, at the time, all the guys I was dating, including one of them is my now boyfriend. I was struggling, man. I was struggling. But it's basically about a girl who moves in with this guy that situation happens randomly that it's the first time they meet, and she obviously they fall in love. Everyone knows that they're gonna fall in love, but he is a world-renowned like porn star. Yeah, the yearning this man does, oh my god, the yearning. Do you know how fit it is when a man yearns for a woman? Do you understand that when a man is willingly like wanting to like punch something because he loves someone so much, it's just oh my god, I was flabbergasted. Anyways, obviously it's quite a unique plot in my opinion, and so that's what intrigued me to it. And yeah, 5 out of 5. No one ever talked to me again. The next one was Always Only You. This wasn't the other one that I bought, but I'll get to that anyways. By Chloe Lies. I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. That was kind of French. Ooh la la. That's really bad. And this one totally was so much cuter than I thought it was gonna be. So I basically picked it up assuming that it was just going to be another kind of like sporty rom-com, which like, even though I detest sport and men who are into sport, like my boyfriend hates all sports, and he's so real for that. He's so real for that. That was one of the green flags that made me choose him. Yeah, I was just like, you know what, I can read it, it's cute, like, you know, it is what it is. When I looked at the initial illustration on the front, I didn't see that the main character had a what do you call it? And then so as I read it, I got like more and more surprised, but in a great way. So it's basically about a girl who is super independent, girl boss, and this guy, obviously we all know they fall in love, but he is in a hockey team. Is it hockey? I think it's hockey. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's hockey. And or ice hockey or something, I don't know. And he's like golden retriever vibes, you know the vibes, you know the vibes. And he's super into her. He's been like yearning for her for a really long time, super protective of her, but like he's like not all macho, like disgusting, toxic, you know what I'm talking about. He's super soft and gentle, and she has an illness and he knows this, and it's just basically how they go from crushing on each other to being in a full-blown relationship. And it's super cute. Again, it's not super original, but I love the story. I will say my one criticism for this book is this is so bad. He makes jokes. No, okay, it's not even jokes. He's like fully, when he like goes to curse, he'll like, oh my god, it's so bad, I can't say it. He uses a Shakespearean curse word, but like with full seriousness, and it just reminds me of someone I dated, and I can't. Yeah, when my eyes erased those bits. It was so cringy, I was getting the ick, but it was just like, if I ignore all of that, it's fine. We can, next page. Aside from that, I gave it a 5 because it was so cute. There were no flaws aside from that, and yeah, it was really, really sweet. Then this was the, I want to say second one that I bought whilst on holiday. The Intimacy Experiment. It's also by Rosie Dunnan, and this one was so disappointing. I also sold this one because initially the roommate was so good, like 5 out of 5, and loved it. I was ready to be like, oh, love this, hot and flustered. Nope, couldn't do it. I couldn't get into it. It's basically about a rabbi. Yep, you heard that right, a rabbi. And the female character is a friend that was in the first book, and she's also in the porn industry. And it was like, obviously I could see what the author was trying to do, because you put a rabbi and a porn star in the same room, you're kind of setting yourself up for a very interesting plot. So I was kind of into it, like the initial idea, and then I got more and more into it, and I was like, I can't do it, I can't get into it. He was the what lacked for me, like the thing is I thought I was going to struggle with the religious aspect of it, and I really didn't, which was great. But what I really struggled with was the guy's personality was non-existent. He was just a nice soft guy, and that was it. There was like very little yearning, at least well, there was, but it just wasn't the same at all. It wasn't written the same, and there was no spiciness in this. There was like one scene of spiciness, and I was like, excuse me, that you are the queen of spiciness. What's going on here? What's going on? Give me that spiciness. And yeah, he just lacked, I don't know, it just lacked like chemistry for me. It didn't feel like, oh my god, I'm rooting for them, you know. It was just like, oh, okay, cool, cute, kinda, you know. But again, I think this is what happens when you raise your expectations for a book. It's the same with men. Listen to me, girlies. Anyways, then I came home, and I've still got about 1 million books to go through, so get comfortable. And I read The Sayings of the Buddha by William Ray, and it was what I expected. It was decent. It was The Sayings of the Buddha, so I gave that a 4 because it's just like nothing extraordinary, but what I expected. Then I read Women by Annie Leibovitz and Susan Sontag. They're two very famous female photographers who I love. It's a book, but it's also a picture book, but it counts. And anyways, it was just about women. It's about the things they go through, and each individual in it was either, you know, completely someone random or famous, like their friends. And there was even images of women who had been abused, but like obviously these women had given permission for them to be photographed with their bruises, etc. And it was just beautiful. I loved it. Anything celebrating women or expressing that womanship is just stunning. I loved it. I gave it a 5. Then I read The 7 Spiritual Laws to Success. As you can tell, I have a lot of these kinds of books hanging around, blame my mum, by Deepak Chopra. And again, it says what it is. It's kind of very standard, but not bad, not extraordinary. I gave it a 4 or 4.5, you know. And then I got into some like fiction again. I was on a roll. I was like, yeah, back in fiction. And I read The Birth of Tragedy, and it just, in one ear out the other, what the fuck did I read? Because I have no clue. By Friedrich, I don't know how you say his surname, Nietzsche. I can't fucking say his surname. I'm not gonna butcher it because that would be so rude of me. But I read 2 of his books. The first one, Birth of Tragedy. Second one, Ecce Homo. I gave both 4 because the premise I completely vibe with, and he is a good writer, and it's just so interesting. But I was just kind of lost. I was like, it's like when you sit in a class and everyone's speaking about what's going on and you're like, have I missed something? That's kind of how I felt, but that's just me being me. It wasn't that it was a bad book at all. Then I was lucky enough to be gifted a book by a new upcoming author who goes by Ogerian O. The book is called Ugly Sight. So I got gifted the first, I think it was like 4 or 5 chapters. I don't know where it is. I have all of these books on me and I just don't have the energy to like go get them, but I did look for this one because I was gifted it, and I don't know where I've put it, but I've put it somewhere because I've read it all. And the premise is super cool. It's basically about a pandemic that took over the world and gave people powers and stuff, and I'm not spoiling anything, don't worry. So I love the premise straight up. It was really cool. Things like this I find super interesting to read once in a while. And my initial thoughts like reading it was like, it was so cool to read someone's first like kind of draft and piece of writing. And the characters, what I loved about this was the characters are so realistic, in the sense of the dialogue is super realistic, and that's something that even like professional authors can't pinpoint. As someone who has studied script writing, I am a high film degree graduate but my major was in script writing. Dialogue is something that is very hard for a lot of people for some reason to pin down, and as someone who gets it it's something I notice straight away. If there is unrealistic dialogue in something, or the dialogue is super stagnant and not at all like can't read it, it immediately throws you off. It's like the biggest part of a novel, especially in fiction. And so super relieved when I was reading it. I was like, cool, like this is dialogue that would actually happen. And it's really cool that also each individual character had such like, what's the word, chiseled like personalities. They were so strong in their personalities, and I love that, because again, that is something that if you watch my recent videos, so many authors have failed on. In terms of the plot, I only read like 4 or 5 chapters, so I really couldn't give a full like review, but from what I read, I'd give it about a 3 out of 5. Everything was super strong, but I just need the rest of the book to kind of give it a proper review. There could definitely be room for improvement. I mean, my first novel in general, and it's on its 100th draft, just it needs help and not from me. So there could always be room for editing and stuff, but aside from that, it was not bad at all, and I enjoyed it. So thank you for gifting that book to me. It was a pleasure. Then we have The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. I read his first book, which was The 4 Agreements. I almost said amendments. I'm losing my mind a bit, be patient with me. And this was exactly as I expected it to be again, but I have read from this author a lot, and it's in the title. All these spiritual books are very like, you're just hitting it on the nail, you know? It's not really something to have massive expectations from. So I think I gave that a 4. I have started Archer's Voice, but the audiobook, and audiobooks take me a very long time to get through because I don't usually have the time to get through an audiobook the way I do with the normal book. But I have started it and I do like it so far, and I feel like it's gonna make me cry, so no one spoil anything. Then I read One Day in December by Josie Silver, and I had mixed feelings about this one. I was like, sounds cute, kind of old, traditional, I don't know. Read it, cried, don't talk to me. Loved it. I gave it a 4.5. It was so good. Very like, there was something very British about it, but I'm British and I prefer that to American. Anyways, it was so cute. And I'm not going to spoil any of it because every single detail you just need to read. Then I read 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. Now, if you've seen this book anywhere, it's everywhere on social media because it has an aesthetic cover. Half this book I enjoyed. The other half, I wanted to murder the author. And that sounds really harsh. I didn't mean that, but like, it was just like, her name's Brianna West, I don't know, and she had a very patronizing voice for like a good chunk of it, and it was like, don't do this, do this, do this, don't do this, and it's like, you do this, and it's like, you don't know me, what do you mean? So while I agree with a lot of the premises that she's talking about, I think it could have been executed in a better manner. Am I going to keep the book? Yes, because I agree with the premise. Do I think I'll get rid of the book in a few years? Yes, because I'm probably not going to pick it up again. Then I read Still Life with Woodpecker, and I loved it. I loved it. This is the last book that I read. I'm currently on Before Your Memory Fades, which is the 3rd book of that whole series. There's a 4th one and I'm super excited to read it. So good so far. I love this series, love this author. So Still Life with Woodpecker by Tom Robbins, who is a great author, and his first book that I read a few months ago was great. I was just super confused, and my favourite artist, Yesstyle, told me to read this. He tells everyone at his show to read this book when he performs, and the first one I was like, I have no idea what's going on, I'm so sorry. 3 out of 5. This one, 5 out of 5, easy. So much easier to follow, but still so eclectic and crazy and deep and beautifully written, and I understood it, and it was still like being transported to like the 70s, even though I don't think it's even set then. It was just like you were transported to a different realm, this book, and I just absolutely loved it. It was so good. It was brilliant, and I messaged Yesstyle about it, Adrian, and I said to him, "You're right, this book is it. The other one, not for me, but this one, so good." And he has a book called Tom Robbins, which is about this book. And Adrian, I'm telling you again, for the millionth time this year, you gotta release it, because it makes me cry. But yes, I just feel like I sped walked the whole time I was filming, so that's why I am. But as you can tell, I've read a lot in the past couple months, and I've got a lot to read. I've got this one, listening to Archer's voice, a book came in the mail today, I have another one on the way. There's a lot going on. Anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this chaotic book review. And I hope to see you in my next video. I hope you have a great weekend, because this is going to be posted on a Friday. Love you. Bye.